Hello, everybody. Pastor Randy here. Hope you are well today on this beautiful Monday. Hope your week is off to a great start. Looking forward to being with you today and, Lord willing, every day this week as we come together for this series we call Making It Simple. You've often heard me in many of my lessons talking about the difference between hearing and listening. When we have a hearing issue, a hearing impairment, it can be quite frustrating. I suffer with that. I don't hear well, and as I've gotten older, it's gotten worse. In fact, I've lost about 90% of the hearing in my right ear and quite a bit in the other. And it's a struggle for me sometimes. Sometimes when I'm talking to people, they might think that I'm not paying them attention when actually I'm trying to position my head to the left because my left ear is what's still good so that I can actually hear them. Because I don't want to miss what they're saying. I want to know what they're saying for several reasons. Number one, I care. And number two, I want to make sure that I heard what they actually said so that I don't get it wrong, either in my answer or in my understanding of what they said. Now, that is a literal, physical, medical, if you will, impairment. But the one who is unwilling to hear, the one who has an impediment that is there that is not because of a physical abnormality or the loss or inability to hear from some type of medical reason or accident, but rather because they have no interest in what you're saying, they have no desire to hear the truth, or because they've made their mind up that they're not going to listen to anything that you say, regardless. What we find in this situation, in this lesson that we've been looking at here in John, is a real serious issue with exactly that. Those around the leadership at that time and those that were angry at Jesus had allowed their anger to actually boil over to hatred. It wasn't just a disdain. It wasn't just a, this guy's a nuisance and I wish he wasn't around type thing. They had grown to hate him because he stood for something that they refused to be a part of. He stood for freedom and truth and victory and spiritual soundness and all the different components of the teachings and the messaging of Christ, and they wanted nothing to do with that because they liked being in charge. And by being in charge, that meant they got to tell everybody else what to do. They loved that. And they weren't going to give that up for anybody, regardless of what it cost them, even their very soul. So their hatred for Jesus moved in such a way that it impeded their ability to hear. It wasn't that the audible had been shut down. They didn't hear the message at all. And they got very frustrated with that. As a person that suffers with hearing issues, it's very frustrating to not be able to hear. There's a difference in what their frustration came from. Their frustration came because the messaging never stopped. And the messaging was always consistent. They were waiting to hear what they wanted to hear, and it never came. And so they got angrier and angrier. We left off on Friday when we were together, and he said, I'm only here for a short while. And he was dealing with a timing matter. Obviously, the crucifixion was coming up, all the different things, and obviously ultimately the ascension where he would return back to heaven. But he said to them, where I go, you can't come. Now, they didn't get that because they weren't looking at it from the spiritual. They were only looking at it from the physical. And so they got really, really angry. And as we pick up today in this last part of this section, we see the frustration in their words, but we see the loss of the messaging here. I want us to share that as we look. It says, then the Jews said among themselves, where's he going to go that we can't find him? Again, they're looking at that from a literal perspective, thinking, now wait a minute. Is he talking about hiding in such a manner or moving into a place that we can't go? I mean, who does this guy think he is? That he's going to go somewhere that we can't find him? Because we're going to find him, because we want to get rid of him. And so they began to ask themselves, well, wait a minute, is he going to disperse themselves among the Gentiles and teach them? Again, is he going to go into another people group to where we won't lower ourselves to go? Think about what was being said there. They were not as much confused. To some degree, they were a little bit thinking, where's he going to go that we can't find him? I mean, how's that possible? What is he talking about? Because again, they're only thinking here of the physical versus the spiritual. They just weren't listening, friends. Jesus was very, very clear in his messaging. He was very clear in the words that he said, the lessons that he taught, the heart that he gave before everybody. But it's just like anything now. If you're not willing to listen, you won't hear. And so this is where they found themselves. Their anger, their hatred had truly limited their ability to understand what was being said. It didn't allow them to see or to hear what was really being said, because the message was very clear. I'm on a mission, and I'm going to complete that mission. And when it's done, I'm going. And you won't realize what you need until it's too late. Too late meaning I'm not going to be here for you to come and talk to. Which moves us into the spiritual realm of faith and understanding exactly what that means to have that kind of relationship with the Lord that would allow us to be able to have a discussion and a talk with him. You know, like the old gospel song, I just need to have a little talk with Jesus and tell him all about my troubles. We need to have that on a daily basis, but it all is built on our relationship, which is all built on our willingness to hear and our willingness to listen, because it's two different things. Here we see a group that wasn't willing to do either one. They were not going to listen because they absolutely refused to hear, because he didn't toe the mark, walk the line, do it the way that they said to do it. He was never going to. That was never the intent. He came for one purpose, to seek and to save that which is lost. He wanted to show people there was a truth, there was a way, there was a life, and it was all in him. That was very important that people grasp that. But those that were in authority, those that were in charge, they wanted to stop that. They wanted to cut it off at the knees. They wanted it stopped immediately because they didn't want people to hear that. They didn't want people to hear that at all. So they're saying, again, looking at the Gentiles, this again is looking at all of those outside of their race and culture, saying, well, certainly, I mean, what's it going to do? Go over there and hang out with them, because we're not going to have anything to do with them. That's the teaching moment here in this lesson, is because they weren't going to lower themselves to that. Again, what does this say for their heart? What does this say for their willingness to share the things of God? They thought it was an exclusive group only for them, and everybody else just wasn't going to make it. And they would say, well, what manner of saying, this is verse 36 of chapter 7, what manner of saying is this that he said, you'll seek me and not find me, and where I am you can't go? I mean, who does this guy think he is? We see the arrogance here. We see the heart. Why is that important? Why is that our opening? Because it leads us to the next section, which gives us the heart of Christ. And they didn't see it because they weren't willing to see it. So you see, friends, one of the reasons that I do this every day, one of the reasons I feel like the Lord asked me to do this every day, is to not only have a platform to show the truth and the love of Christ, but to let every single person realize This message is for you, regardless of where you are in life right now. Believer, non-believer, CEO, or homeless, doesn't matter. God has a message for you because God loves you and he wants to have a relationship with you. That is the heart of Christ. That is the heart of everything that he stood for, the heart of everything that he intended to do while he was walking on this earth. Those that were opposed to that, it wasn't the right or wrong of that message, because there was no wrong. It didn't fit the narrative that they wanted it to. They really, really did enjoy the power component. They liked being in charge. They liked the big titles. They liked the fancy robes and the big hats and the notoriety and all the different things that came with all of that. The fame, the recognition, all the different stuff that came with that. And it was all for the wrong reasons. There's nothing wrong with holding a position. There's nothing wrong with a title. Use it for the right things, whatever that position may be. It could be governor or mayor or president or CEO or chief or captain or whatever. It doesn't matter. Pastor. Use it for what it's for, and that's to help somebody. They didn't care about that. But that was the heart of Christ. And he was trying to get them to see that, hey guys, listen, you've got a phenomenal position that comes with a tremendous amount of responsibility. And you're not using it for the right reasons. You are missing what you were given the power and the authority and the call to do. What are you doing? But they became so blinded by their hatred of this message that it began to affect all of their functioning, seeing, hearing, and the way they treated one another, and the way they treated certainly those around them, because they wanted to cut it off. We have a recent situation in our world with the people of Cuba desiring freedom. As all people, all human beings desire freedom. If you've ever had a taste of it, well, in the process of doing that, we see from a governmental standpoint, a lot of their ability to communicate that has been turned off. We don't want you to have that ability. We don't want you to have the access to the outside world. We don't want you to get your message out. We don't want you to, and again, I'm just using that as a modern example of the abuse of power when someone doesn't want a certain thing out, or when someone doesn't want a certain thing understood. This is all Jesus was trying to get them to understand, is this is not okay. You can be a help. You are supposed to be experts of the law. You are supposed to be the ones that knows the things of God, and yet still you don't even know God. The heart of Christ is what's showing through this, and it's what's showing through everything that we're doing here at Making It Simple, and all of those who care. I'm not singular here. There are others who care about everyone out there. And this is not about preaching. This is, as I've said 100 times, because now we're on episode 103, I've said it over 100 times now. This is not about religion. This is not about church membership. This is not about anything but one thing, and that is a relationship with Christ, and how to obtain that, and why it's important to you, and how to change your life. That was the heart of Christ. That is the heart of all of us who love the Lord and want you to understand the need and the impact of that in your life, and that nothing should get in the way of that. And a lot of things do. We go on and it looks and it says, in the last day, that great day of the feast, this is the ending of that time, Jesus stood and cried and said, and I hear crying mean, of course, just loudly speaking and letting it be audible. If any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. Now, I want us to think about that for a minute. This might be our ending here today. This time, the 8th day of the feast, it was drawing near. What does that mean? It was drawing near to the time of the cross. It was drawing near to the time where it would end the time of Christ on earth as it was known. The resurrection, of course, would bring another 40 days, but it was a different scenario. The work that he had come to do was in full process. Full process. It was moving forward at a rapid pace. Therefore, it was amping up on the enemy's side, meaning those that were in opposition, of saying, we got to stop this at all cost. They were getting desperate. Their hatred was not only blinding them and deafening them, it was driving them in ways that were not okay. It was driving them of manners of desperation that they were willing to do any and everything to stop this message from getting out. So Jesus said here, it's almost done. And he says, if anyone, this verse here in this translation says, if any man, that again is a very broad spectrum word. We're not talking about just the male side of humanity. He's speaking of any human being, all. You see, again, today, we keep hearing the word equality and inclusiveness and this and that. Friends, let me be careful to not get on a soapbox. Those words today are attached to agendas. In other words, tell me I'm right. Agree with me. But that's not what those words mean. It means treat everybody the same. You will never find anything but that in the presence of Scripture and the way that God said things. And in this verse right here, he says, if anybody, I don't care who you are, I don't care if you're the richest guy in the world or the guy that couldn't rub two pennies together. I don't care if you own a duplex or if you own a penthouse. It doesn't matter. If you drive a Rolls Royce or a Pinto, doesn't matter. If anyone thirsts, thirsting here goes beyond the literal need for a liquid beverage to quench your thirst. This is the thirst for love and the thirst for being included and the thirst for knowledge and all the different things that come about. He's saying, if you have that, come to me. I'm the one that can supply what you need. I'm the one who has what you need, and I have a never-ending supply that will never run out, and I'll give you all that you can possibly desire. We'll go back and think about some of the illustrations and some of the accounts and some of the different things that were written and taking place in Scripture. The feeding of the 5,000 comes to my mind as I'm teaching this. The literal number there was much greater than 5,000 because it said 5,000 men. They traveled with family. They had wives and children and whatever the case. There were thousands upon thousands of people there. He provided every single thing they needed as far as their hunger was concerned. And it says they were filled until they couldn't hold any more. And then at the end of it, those that were in doubt, which were who? The disciples, the 12. There were 12 baskets left over. Each one that was in doubt saw the overabundance of what God could supply, and they walked away not only with their doubt in check, saying, hey, this guy can do it all. They walked away with something tangible in their hand. They had a basket full of food as well. God can supply your need. God can bring you out of any ditch that you may be in, any issue that you may be in. He can move any mountain that may be in your way, but you got to believe that. That's what it comes down to. That goes back to relationship side. And he's saying here, if this is your issue, if you are thirsting after whatever it is you're thirsting after, this is your issue, there is only one place you can go to get it fixed. Only one. Nothing else is ever going to work. Any person, any man, anyone, this refers to an open invitation, friends. All are welcome into the arms of Jesus. So the question for you is, do you believe that? You see, the messaging was trying to be impeded by those that didn't want it out. But the question that we have to ask is, well, why would anyone want to stop that? I mean, why would anyone want to not see someone else do better? Well, that's the age-old problem of jealousy. And again, the struggle with, I want to be in charge. I want to be the one. We've wrestled with this almost since the beginning of time, since the beginning of creation, when there became more than one person. I mean, you can go back to Cain and Abel, and one got mad at the other because, well, you got something that I didn't get and I wanted, or I'm going to be mad at you because you got more attention than me. And we know how that turned out. And we still see all the same problems today. It happens all the time. But the Lord, He says, whatever you're looking for, whatever answer you're struggling to find, I've got it. Now, you may not always like it because it may not be what you thought, but I'll guarantee you what I give you will be better than anything you could have ever come up with. My challenge to you today, friends, as we look at this, if you're struggling with anger and hatred and bitterness toward anything or anyone, let that stuff go. It won't help you. It will not improve your condition. It will only cause you to get harder and more bitter and more blind and more deaf. And trust me, when you begin to lose those things in the natural, it's very frustrating. When you can't see as good as you used to, when you can't hear as good as you used to, it's very discouraging at times. It's very hurtful at times. It's very stressful at times because you don't want to miss out on anything. You don't want to miss out on something that's beautiful. You don't want to miss out on something that sounds beautiful or something that's important because somebody cares enough about you to tell you whether it's good or bad. You want to make sure you hear the whole thing. When you get bogged down in ugliness and hatred and anger and bitterness and unforgiveness and all that other stuff, you just miss out on life. Jesus came to give life and it more abundantly. You should want more out of life than that. Don't let anything steal your joy. This world didn't give it to you. God gave it to you. Don't let anybody take that away. It's not theirs to take back. The message of Christ is very simple. I love you. I want a relationship with you. I want to make your life better. Everything else that you surround yourself with, be it things or even other individuals, does not have that same message. Because we have a jealous and a selfish nature about us. What does that require to change that? A heart change. A heart change. You see, I get excited when I see other people do well. I had a friend call me just a couple of days ago. They've been given a phenomenal opportunity, changed their life forever. Man, I couldn't be more excited for them. There's no jealousy there. There's no, I wish that was me. No. If God opened that same door, I would be elated. But He didn't for right now, and that's okay. I'm glad to see someone else. Everything that we do here, making it simple. When someone comments or sends me a message that says, man, that changed my life, it tickles me to death. I love that. That is what we do for. Whether it's here, whether it's on the podcast, Unmasking the Truth, anything, it's all about making somebody's life better. Because when your life is better, so is mine. Because I got to be just a little tiny part of that. And that's exciting. That's what God called us to do, is lift each other up. It's so easy to tear one another down. That's the world we live in. Name calling, bad, messages on Facebook or here or there, or whatever, bad videos, rip everybody apart, curse everybody out. You did me wrong, blah, blah, blah. Friends, the pity pot has got a big, gigantic, cushiony, soft seat that can easily ensnare you to sit on and get really comfortable there, and then ultimately justify why you've stayed there so long. God's saying today, get up. That's not what I made you to do. Get up and be somebody because I love you. And I made you better than that. You can do better than that. Let's not go the route of those that were trying to stop the message of Christ. Let's be inclusive in that message of Christ and let somebody know how much God loves them. But let somebody see Jesus in you visibly. Let them observe. One of the parts of the Great Commission says, teach them to observe the things that I have taught you. If someone is observing something in you, they are physically, visibly seeing that. And the things that Jesus taught were very clear. Love God and love one another. If you're doing those things correctly, they are visible and someone will see them. I believe that with all my heart. I hope you have a great rest of the day. If you don't know Jesus and you want to know what that means, reach out to me and I will be more than happy to explain what that means and how it is absolutely possible. Go forth on this day and have an awesome day. God bless you. It is my honor to be a part of your day. I thank you for being a part of mine. I look forward to being back with you tomorrow. Have a good one.